Other thing, there is, I do believe I talk about the reverse round pen, and that's a great way to work on a little impulse control. But even simpler and more basic is the liberty leading and working on the downward transition. Because with the what I want as their default behavior is if I stand and just stand beside them, and I actually literally tend to soften everything and breathe, take a deep, nice, soft, easy breath. And when I stand beside them, I want that turning their head away to actually have relaxation built into it. So go listen to podcast 1. But I look for and try to reinforce the relaxation and the softness. So they just stand and go, okay. So pretty soon, turning their head away. And if they're very polite, I don't need them to turn their head all the way away. But more often than not, they're not the most polite. So I find it makes it very clear if I say, it's the opposite of what you think. I want your head over there. So it makes it very clear. There's a lot of clarity in that they're like, it's not here. It's the opposite. It's way over there. It kind of clears the boundaries. But if they're very polite, I'm just like, just keep your head to yourself. But ultimately, I start wanting it to be where we just stand together with your head forward, but slightly, I want the weight on that outside foot. Because if their weight's on the outside foot, it takes their shoulders a little bit away. Or if they start to come in a little bit, if I stop and relax, hopefully they'll rock away. And that's a way to deal with that kind of being too close and encroaching on your space. And they don't mean to, they're doing what works for them. And a horse who's insecure, being next to you and touching you can feel very comforting. So what I want to do is I want to build up on that. I want them to think, I want to weight that outside foot. It automatically puts some distance between the two of you. And it becomes relaxation, because I start shaping for relaxation. It doesn't come right away. It is something I shape for. So listen to lesson 1, listen to lesson 2. Those two pieces are really big for kind of establishing some relaxation. And why it is so important is because she's creating the relaxation. I'm not putting equipment on. I mean, I'm shaping it because I'm being an alert, trainer. But it's not like I'm putting equipment on. It's not like I'm stopping and saying, ho, I don't do any of that. I just say, in the best case scenario, as we start to walk, and let's stop. And when I feel the settling and I see the softening, I click that action. So, they're starting to get a little big, and I go, okay, well, let's slow down. Your energy's going a little up. So I go, and oh, and as they settle back down, you'll see some of the tension go away. So that's a shaping process that I really work on until they learn. And is it really impulse control? Really, what I've done is I've made it more reinforcing to relax and soften. And then it is to follow your urge to go off and chase and run and get disconcerted about things. So I think that's a really important lesson. And I go back to those all the time. There's times when we're doing things, now we're working on the jumping, it's great. And I start to think, whoa, you're a little big right now. Or sometimes even with Minty, who's going to be 28 next month. I still work. I don't do many sessions with him now. I see him every day and tend to him every day, but he's out on the track with other old guys all day, every day. So he comes in the evening and I check on him and stuff. But even at his old age, when I'm out there doing stuff, and he knows everything that I've ever taught him, and he retains it, and he's good, and he's in a great place. I still go out and go, okay, we're doing stuff, we're not doing stuff. And I reinforce the settling, because to me, the most important behavior in the world is standing quietly and with quietly and with relaxation. Standing still doesn't mean they're relaxed. Standing quietly and soft and relaxed and patient, that's the behavior I'm looking for, and I value it above everything else. Because if I can go to that behavior in the midst of chaos, I can get them to a better place. In the lesson 3, I get into the target, and this is going a little long, so I'm just going to direct you back to there. But in there, I talk about the target being a conditioned reinforcer, and how I started noticing when I started working with the horses that it became a point of safety for them. They went there. And the first horse I worked with, and that I really saw this with. He was a Grand Prix show jumper, but he was a client's horse. So he wasn't with Beezy, the professional. He was with their client, which meant you don't get your client a wild horse. Beezy doesn't have wild horses anyway, but you get one that's really going to be sensible and do their job and likes their job. And so he was a really sensible horse, and he was out in the paddock and he got startled. And I tell this story, but I'm kind of telling it now too. And he got so startled, and they tried for 5 hours to get him in. And they took out food, they took out grain, they took out carrots. Nothing would get him out of this place. He was just over threshold, and you would walk up and he'd snort and flag his tail and run away like a giant Arabian. And then you'd turn to walk away, and he'd come running back like, "Don't leave me." And you go, "Okay, I'll get you." And he'd go, and he'd start this cycle. And he's just been doing this for 5 hours, like I said, and no food worked, nothing worked. And so I went out with a target, which he had learned months ago and had not seen since. And I did it at a show in one of those, like we have show tents here in the US. So they're small, it just, and he hadn't done it once he came back here. So I didn't know what he'd do. I was still very much a marine mammal trainer working with horses and figuring out horses. And he went running away and snorting and flagging his tail. And then when he turned, and remembering I always want to click and want to see more of, I watched, and as he kind of came my direction, which they said he did, as soon as you turned your back, I clicked. And then I turned around, and he was standing. He's frozen, like 20 feet off. He's like, "I don't know what to do." And I held the target over the fence, and he relaxed. He walked up and touched the target, and I took him home. And so it told me whatever had him over threshold continuously, and even to the point of conflict, like he didn't want to be there, the target just instantly got him back down. And I'm sure it was the visual element and the classic conditioning that was part of the target. So the classic conditioning is very important. When you get that default position of standing and waiting their outside foot, so they're barely noticeable, but they're slightly on that outside foot. And when that's their favorite behavior in the world, and it represents safety, and it represents everything good, then that's something you can go to that can help them bring themselves back down and under threshold. So I hope that helps. I mean, there's way more. I could just keep talking and talking, because I think this is really a big subject. And there's going to be times you need to go back to those basic exercises. So your little gal is out there and she's kind of getting startled by something, and hey, can you come with me? Let's stop and settle. And as you can kind of direct her back to you, and look for her to bring it down just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. If she can just start to settle a little bit, go, "That's what I'm looking for, and that's what I'm looking for, and that's what I'm looking for." So I hope that gave you some good ideas. I mean, this is much bigger than just this, but I think it's a good place to get you started and thinking about some things to address. If you have more questions in here, Charlotte, I want you to not hesitate to ask. So maybe you get on your way and you're doing it, and then you get to a point you're like, "Now what?" So I want you to not hesitate to reach back out. Go to, for those of you who don't know, go to shawnakarrasch.com, and you will find there's pages, and one of them is Ask Shawna, and you can submit a question there. Another one is my podcast, where you can find different episodes of my podcast. Another one is products. If you want side buckets, targets, book, clicker, just whatever, you can go there. And then it's also directly related with the Villanova site. So if you want to find out what we're up to out here in New Mexico, that is Santa Fe, New Mexico in the United States. That is where you can find out what we're up to at Villanova, because we have things going. And as the world shifts back to hopefully a more normal world this spring and summer, hopefully we'll be back out there and having people come here and being able to be a little more active out there in the world. The world getting back to normal would be good. Anyway, Charlotte, thank you for your answer. And if you have any more questions, like I said, just send them right back in. Anybody else, if you have questions, you now know where to go. All righty, until next time, bye-bye.